Is the U.S. administration floating Ukraine surrendering its territories? And is Putin cozying up to an unexpected industrializing country? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so first off, I think this is, to me, the most relevant story because an anonymous U.S. government official, but quoted by the New York Times, has said that while Russia will not accept losing the territory it currently holds, that Ukraine may want to consider simply giving up, right? This U.S. official said, quote, even without formally winning back its land, Ukraine could still emerge a victor in the war by moving closer to NATO and Europe. Now, for context, guys, no one's going to sign a peace deal where they don't feel that they have won something. That's kind of how peace agreements work, right? A good negotiated deal is going to be one in which both sides feel they've lost out. The only time that that isn't the case is when an opponent's been totally, thoroughly defeated. And that is unlikely to happen in this conflict, at least anytime soon. But what I thought was really troubling is that this is an effort by the U.S. administration to start the spin machine, right? The spin machine of framing a loss as a win. And this kind of annoys me a lot, right? Because one, they say even not formally winning back its land. Guys, there's no informal way to win back your territory, okay? FYI, right? So, and Ukraine could still emerge a victor by moving closer to NATO and Europe. Okay, imagine if the U.S. were to lose its entire the Western 7 states. And then we said, well, actually, you guys are winning because you made a bunch of friends along the way. That's what this is. This is literally the real victory were the friends we made along the way, unironically, okay? That's not how winning works. If that's the participation trophies. The important thing is we stayed friends through the whole journey. No, the important thing is winning your territory back. I don't know how else to put this. Putin's designs are to create his Novo Russia, are to expand Russia to its furthest historic borders. Okay? So you can't sit there and be like, well, actually, having nicer friends is the real victory. It's just not true, right? And the problem with this sort of friends we made along the way non-victory spin is that this sends a message to every other authoritarian country with designs on its neighbor, who says that if you're stronger than your neighbor and you're willing to sustain the fight longer than the West, you too can take whatever you want. And eventually, the West will just reframe a loss as a victory. And this scenario is so internationally dangerous. Again, Xi Jinping is taking notes. Remember, China has an economy several times the size of Russia, okay? And has a population like 10 times that of Russia. So as many Russian troops as Russia can field in this fight, China can 10x that. And they can 10x the amount of drones. And they can 10x the amount of armored plates and artillery shells. They're a manufacturing powerhouse. And so they're sitting there and they say, listen, if we can do this, if Russia can take all of Ukraine, it is nothing for us to take Taiwan, and the West is just going to take it. After 2.5 years, the West will just suck it up. And they'll say, yeah, there's no Taiwan left, sure. But you know what? The Taiwanese government, we're really good friends now. Our friendship is like this. This is why when people talk about ideals, about democracy, and about pluralism and the idea that people should have a say in how and who governs them, the right of people to decide what kind of government their country has. Those are like the fundamental questions here that we're wrestling with, right? In the Ukraine conflict. So I point this out because please do not allow the mainstream media spin machine to push this on you, because they're floating it, right? It's right after the NATO conference. They're going to float more. And as we've talked about, becoming a NATO member or a European Union member, it's not guaranteed, right? Because Ukraine, as we talked about, if Ukraine has claims on its territory and says, hey, we're under attack and we're a NATO member, guess what? Instant Article 5. And the U.S. is going boots on ground on this. So you shouldn't want that either, right? And this, I understand the U.S. officials, right, in the rest of this article. We got it here on the New York Times. It's a new month. I can steal for like 3 articles from them. U.S. is saying, listen, Ukraine has aid. Russia's going to have a hard time seizing new territory, right? Russia's in the midst of its Donetsk offensive, and it's steadily taking little bitty slices of territory here and there to the tune of tens of thousands of casualties every month. And it's a steep order, something that a democracy would never be able to stomach unless it was an existential crisis, right? But to lose soldiers, to lose men at this scale for a war in some other far-flung part of the country against an enemy who is never actually threatening you is something that only a Putin-style authoritarian can execute, or a Xi Jinping-style authoritarian, or an Iranian-style theocracy, right? They can stomach that kind of fight. But both the Pentagon and the CIA seem to be in agreement now, as well as a bunch of other independent think tanks who say Ukrainian forces are stretched thin. This is from Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Ukrainian forces are stretched thin and face difficult months of fighting ahead, but the major Russian breakthrough is now unlikely. And that's because they have the gear they need to fight. They have a somewhat improved conscription system. And that is going to enable Ukraine to hold the Russians largely at bay. Now, there are more problems than just this. And as we've talked about, the media spin machine, I can see it ramping up. They're starting to float this idea of the real victory is the friends we made along the way. So if you want someone like me to exist as an independent media source, you guys know I rarely get sponsors. I just had a video demonetized because I literally showed a Russian soldier being arrested, and I cannot get YouTube to even manually review it. It drives me bananas. But it's an election year. You guys know the game. Anyway, if you want to support me and you want access to uncensored, unfiltered, exclusive combat footage analysis, sometimes combat footage from the front line that's like 48 hours old, you want to become a member of combatvetnews.com. The link is in the description. Any one of these tiers is going to get you access. You want the twice a week uncensored videos only? Specialist tier. Boom. Any one of these is a great way to support the channel. But if you want to participate in the weekly Q&A videos where you submit questions, I provide you a response about anything. My own military service, personal stuff, my favorite pizza, what I think about a Ukrainian weapon system. You want to become a lieutenant tier, right? You also get your name at the end of the videos. But if you really want to support the channel and are the ultimate Alpha Chad superhero, you want to become a colonel tier. Get obviously all the other benefits, but you get your by name recognition at the end of the videos. Can't argue with that. So check it out, combatvetnews.com. And just, again, you guys are the ones who enable me to do this every day. And you make it so that I don't have to kowtow to some garbage narrative. I'm trying not to swear. Some garbage narrative that tries to reframe surrendering as winning. This is America, man. We beat the Soviets once. We could do it again. I don't know what else to tell you. But let's talk about a more troubling turn of events. And this is Russia, Putin specifically, on his international peace tour, where he is he's meeting with Indian Prime Minister Modi. This is a real problem for a couple of reasons, okay? First off, Putin, you might recall, on the wake, just hours after bombing a children's cancer hospital, gets a big hug from the Indian Prime Minister, who Putin called Modi my dearest friend. Yo, dude, like I said, the real Putin too apparently believes that the real victory is the friends he made along the way, which is good because there's a lot fewer friends he can have in Russia, Those tens of thousands of dead soldiers are just a rounding error. Now, Modi's 2-day visit comes with real consequences too. Not just me sort of mocking. This isn't just a meet and greet. right? There's a lot of new announcements they made, a lot of deals that these guys have struck together. Good summary again from ISW, right? One, there is a joint statement specifically in which they're going to increase joint production of spare parts for servicing Russian-made military equipment in India. Very troubling. Agreed to establish a working group on technological cooperation. You know that India is one of the handful of countries with a space program. So India can get satellites and other things into orbit. There's not that many countries that have that technical expertise, and India is one of them. And that is troubling, right? Even the European Union, I don't think they launched their own rockets. But, so they've got this technological cooperation working group, right? They also plan to pivot existing cooperations, joint researches, produce advanced defense technologies and systems, also very troubling, right? They're also considering entering a formal long-term agreement on supplying oil, flaunting U.S. sanctions, and allowing Indian companies to participate in Russian gas projects. Again, this for Modi is driven by two primary things, it seems. The first is fear, right? India's rival China is cooperating with Russia fairly extensively, and India doesn't want to create a scenario in which China is able to get huge amounts of raw material, particularly gas and fertilizer and such, from Russia, while India just has to buy it on the open market for a higher price. And India wants to be able to enhance its industrial base. It wants to industrialize. China's industrializing extremely rapidly. India is growing at a comparable pace, but nothing like what China has been able to do. And that worries India, right? They need to be able to balance China's regional powers, and they just can't seem to do it, right? And so they want a partner like Russia. So China and India are in some ways competing for Russia's friendship. It really is about the friends you made along the way. So this is all very troubling because the losers here, first are Ukraine, as Russia's going to get a lot stronger from this, and two, the West. Because again, the West has positioned itself. We said, listen, we're the people you want to cooperate with. We have the best, most advanced defense technology. We have huge markets and massive industrial base. We have so many things that you would want, that partnering with dictators like Putin simply isn't worth it. But the fact is that the U.S. has shown they will partner. The West has shown it will partner with someone like China, as long as China is making cheap stuff. So that's kind of the most troubling part of all this, truly. And this is probably part of Russia's larger campaign, Putin's campaign, to create his, quote, alternative Eurasian security architecture, which is, again, a pretty scary way to think about this sort of thing. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Please give the video a like. Thanks to our Colonel tier members, James Jerling, Steve Moran, Doug Beck, Alan Knudsen, Bastian Hemmerling, Yanko Georgiev, and thanks to our Lieutenant tier members. I could not do this without all you guys. You guys are really just the ones who make this possible. And we will see you guys for the Q&A tomorrow. Cheers.